This meeting is called to order. We like to start with good news, happy events. So at this time, I would like to introduce to you Steve DeAngelis, and the Nordic ski state champion, who happens to also be a DeAngelis. Steve, would you like to tell us how wonderful your son is?
I think I should probably speak just as a coach under the circumstances. But Luca was the classic and ski champion this year, and he earned it. One of the cool things about Nordic skiing is it never comes free. You have to work really hard to be able to be good at it, and a lot of it's without public notice. So he's really happy about being here. That's it. Smile just a little. You can do it. So he's kind of used to doing this without many people around watching, you know. So this is probably more people than are at many of the ski races. But he works at it really hard and loves it. And he's part of a tremendous group of skiers. We have about 40 skiers on the Nordic ski team, and they're some of the hardest working, most intrinsically motivated kids that I know. And I love how hard they work, and Luca's a great example of that. So thank you for being nice to him and saying something nice to him, Mike.
Congratulations.
So we have a certificate for the coach and for Luca. So I think we should give Luca a round of applause.
All of your, all this is hard work. It's a receiving line. Oh, great. But you can go first. That's right. Thank you. Very good.
Nice going, Luca. Congratulations. Nice going, Steve. Yeah.
Main principal, principal's award, yeah. Yep. I'm sure he'll be back for that.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Any discussion, questions, comments? Yes?
So on the, are we going to pay for, under Mr. Conway's, are we paying for this transportation or not? I have two questions.
To go off the consent agenda.
Do what?
Well, no, I mean, if you have questions about it, then we're going to take that one and leave it out.
You want to take it off? Oh, I think Dwayne's
All we got to do is answer the one question, that's all.
Gear Up is paying for the transportation.
Gear Up, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion of approving the consent agenda? Thank you. All opposed? Thank you. Are there any citizens present for comments at this time that don't have to do with the budget? Okay. Do you have any additions or adjustments that you would like to make?
I have none.
Does that, Steve?
Following up on last time, I thank the principal or whoever for putting together this list. I'd like to add it to the agenda so we can make a resolution of the board thanking and recognizing these people formally.
Without objection.
So if you want to do it now.
Yeah.
I would move that the board resolves, recognizes, and thanks This listed staff and students for making the WGME Fox 23 School Spirit Challenge here at Maranacook, a tremendous success. It was more than just a close second. I think it was just a couple £100, which relates to, $20 worth of contributions, roughly speaking, because a $100 contribution was equal to 2,000 pounds. And so, it was extraordinarily close, and it was at the very last minute that we got nipped. So, given the fact that we don't have a strong tradition of, let's say, pep rallies, school spirit activities, it was refreshingly surprising. And I was there that morning, and I was amazed at the number of kids who showed up so very, very early in the morning.
Good. So the motion is to acknowledge
Hold on.
and thank the staff and students. Is there a second? Okay, yes, Ms. T.
I just want to make sure now, what is it called, the fireworks place in Manchester, did they end up donating the fireworks? Should that be on this list? How does that work?
This is a list of staff and students.
Okay.
That's what was asked for.
Okay. I do know that some businesses in the community also, Augusta Fuel donated, depending on who got fuel from them. So I got a letter actually in the mail because I'm a customer of Augusta Fuel stating that on your behalf, we gave X amount of dollars according to your fuel usage for 2015.
I think we should have that, but probably it's going to be a separate
Yeah,
recognition.
I think that would be
We need to have
nice.
a list of those businesses and find a way to, separately recognize them, and maybe even have some paper they can put up on their refrigerator or wall or
I think that would
whatever.
be really nice in addition to this, if nobody else objects to that.
And we can save that as an item for another agenda that we can start good news with. Okay. So, all in favor of this recognition? Opposed? Thank you. Okay? Well, once again, we've made it to the time of the evening where we discuss the budget. The one item on the budget that's come up in terms of correspondence from community members is our revenue item, which I think we are projecting at $45,000 for money that we collect for students participating in extracurricular activities, excuse me. And members of the board have letters in their packets, I believe, from 2 residents who have asked that we no longer require activity fees for extracurricular activities. And I heard from one other person recently with the same kind of request, and then another person a couple months ago had some questions about it. So just as a matter of record, this has come up from 4 community members out of our district. And we also know that one of our board members has concerns and wants to discuss this issue as well. So, I'll ask you your thoughts, and I'll give you my thoughts in whatever order you want on this issue.
So just to be clear, these citizens are asking that at some point we either reduce or do away with the activity fee, at least starting with reducing or doing away with the activity fee for people who receive a free or reduced lunch. So just to be clear, that's where we are.
The history of this is that years ago we didn't charge any activity fees, and then at one point the school board wanted to charge an activity fee for all students, and the annual meeting voted that down because not all students participate. In fact, some students get cut when they want to participate, so the argument was that all students shouldn't be required to pay. And then a few years later, there was possible action by the board to cut some activities that were expensive and not necessarily the best money well spent would like interscholastic middle school sports, but the reaction to the community was pretty strong and they wanted their middle school teams, and parents were very clear at the time that it was their opinion that they should have the opportunity to pay rather than have the opportunity eliminated. And so that's how we came to be where we are now, and we've been doing it for 4 years, charging an activity fee for every extracurricular activity that a student participates in. We also have a policy that says if it's financially difficult, all you have to do is fill out a little paper, and you don't have to make copies of your IRS 1040 forms or anything like that. You just say that you'd like assistance for a particular student for a particular activity, and that fee is covered by private funds, and my understanding is it's usually covered through the Marana Cook Education Foundation and the Austin Bear Society or group or whatever they're called, has also contributed to student activity fees. I think at one point we might have done it automatically through free lunch and reduced services, or we decided not to, because actually that's a program that's supposed to be confidential, and once you start having to identify yourself as part of that for another reason, it's no longer confidential, which is why I don't think that's the best way to go. I've seen the form that the parent fills out, and it's, you don't have to sign over your life and give a million reasons why you're asking for assistance. The number of children, of students or parents asking for assistance has increased this year, which to me is an indication that they're not afraid to ask for help, nor are they embarrassed to ask for help. It's available and they're asking for help. I'll just give you one more thought that I have, and then on this issue, because I've spent like 5 days thinking about it because these emails were addressed to me, and there are lots of activities that we all as parents have wanted or want our children to participate in, and they oftentimes include, in my case, I remember paying at least $20 for every art lesson, drum lesson, guitar lesson, voice lesson that my 2 boys took. That was $20 a week about for all those different activities. And what the school offers is activities supervised by responsible adults where they can do things with their peers over an 8 to 10 week period for relatively little money given the what we're offering. So I'm in favor this year particularly of continuing to get that revenue to help with our budget. Trish.
Can you talk into your microphone?
I was not in the school board when this was all decided, but I think the school board as we exist now has been very interested in equity for all of our students, and that's why we have universal pre-K, and that's why we're doing dual enrollment. And it seems kind of counterproductive to also be charging kids for other things that are equally important to their education. So public schools should be free and fair, and I think that charging people for something that we're offering through the school is not free or fair. The ACLU has challenged participation fees in other states and won. I don't think that that's going to happen here, but I think it just gives some idea that, you know, when other people have thought about it, they've decided that this is not something that we should be doing as a public educational institution. I think that anything that we find important enough to offer as part of the school, we should be paying for and making sure that everybody who wants to participate can. I think it's great that we are allowing students to have an option of not having to pay, but I don't think that's equitable, really, because if I asked, I know if my child wanted to participate in something and I had to fill out a form, well, I might do it once, but I certainly wouldn't want to do it 2 or 3 times a semester. And we all know that when the kids go off to apply for college, it's important to have a wide range of activities. So if you've got 2 students that are applying to Colby, for example, one of them's been in everything, and the other one does 1 activity a year because that's the only thing she can afford, that's not an equitable outcome for our students, and I don't think that's something that we should be trying to put forward. So, I don't know, does anyone have a question about that, or?
Let's see. I gotta wear 2 hats here as a board member and as a parent. So first, the parent perspective. I am the mom, a single mom, by the way, of 2 athletes. I have 3 kids. 2 out of my 3 are 3-season athletes. So that's $125 per season for me out of my pocket. So Trish, I guess I am a believer that the kids who are involved in athletics are involved, and I shouldn't just say athletics, because this goes for the play and whatever else these kids are deemed to be interested in. These interests, in my opinion, come from very young age. So the kids that are involved in these things, from my point of view, having seen it for year after year after year, they've been involved since they were 5 years old. I mean, my son played travel basketball, travel baseball, travel soccer, all of it. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I find it unfortunate. $125 per season, that's a lot of money to me. That's almost $400 per year that I'm spending on athletics, in addition to any other activity that my kids do. My daughter does dance, so I get it. I get that it's a hardship. The fiscally responsible side of me on the board says this is necessary because citizens don't want us to take programs away. They don't want to, not have sports at the middle school. We've tried to restructure the middle school sports and having, what do they call it? Intramural sports. That was a big no. We've tried to restructure the elementary schools. That was voted down. We've tried so many things that over the years, this seemed like an appropriate way, for us to be able to continue with those things. It's gone up. The activity fee, I believe when we first started, Steve, do you remember, was it $50?
It was closer to 50.
It was either 50 or 55 at the high school. It's now 75, and it was like 25 or 30 at the middle school, and it's now 50. So I guess for me, I agree with Terry, just kidding, that I would like to see us keep the way it is right now for this budget season, and if we continue to hear grumblings about this from our community, that we really take the time next year, next budget season, next fall, and start to look at this. We did have, way back when we first implemented this, we had a study committee that got together and actually looked through all of the data and all of the people that were playing sports, that were doing the play, and that's how we came up with that figure at the time. And they really there was a good cross-section of community members and administrators and school board members that participated on that. So it was a really good cross-section of people. I didn't feel like at the time anybody was really left out of that decision-making because it was sort of a community-based, here's where we are, we're in trouble and we need this money. So, some of the letters that we've received state $45,000 in revenue is 0.02% of our total budget. But $45,000 is a teacher's salary. It's another program. So I just would hope that board members think about those things. It isn't a huge part of our budget, but it is those other things, the salary or...
Trish?
I just wanted to say that your point about the self-selecting, that I think that, yes, the same kids are a lot of times involved in things, but at least in my experience, by the time kids get up to middle school or high school, then they get to choose for themselves, and children that have not had the ability to be involved in traveling teams and things since they were little because of their parents' circumstances should have the chance to start then. I'm just asking that we give kids the freedom to participate in anything that we think as a school is important, and not exclude kids just because of their family circumstances.
I think it's important if we did look at this, what the data shows, and maybe that's something Donna or Bridget could help us with. What are the numbers? What are the numbers that are provided scholarships for any activity fee from Rannocook Education Foundation? I think we should also loop us and Bears in and find out how many scholarships they're giving out for that very same reason. I would like to see some concrete data that we're actually, how many kids are actually benefiting from this.
Jim?
But first, I want to stress how important I think extracurricular activities are, be it sports, be it drama, whatever it is. I'm someone who was fortunate enough to get to go to a school where I probably couldn't have afforded to without subsidy from an athletic scholarship. So I understand that it creates opportunities for people that potentially they couldn't have. But as the sort of the new guy on the school board, I have some questions that may or may not have already been answered. So if they have, I apologize. One, if we benchmark what surrounding towns do, so if we gone and what does Winthrop do? What are the surrounding towns, the same or similar size, do? What do they charge? What are the subsidies that are provided? The other question I have is how do we send out the assistance form? So if someone wants to ask for assistance, do we make it as easy as humanly possible and send the form out so they don't have to go search for it, they don't have to do anything other than fill the form out and hand it in without any hardship or embarrassment? And as much as I agree with Trish that it is we should be providing a free public education, including all programs. I don't think fiscally we're at the point right now based on our current mill rates and based on where the budget stands to go down that road.
Donna, can you answer some questions?
So 2 years ago, when the idea of intramurals came up at the middle school, we did a study of surrounding districts. And it was really all over the place. I believe Winthrop was $100 per season, per year, and that covered any season. A lot of schools charge participation fees, but we did a pretty good study to look at other districts and see what was going on. And at that point, that's when the board was confident in raising the participation fees to $75 and $50. What was your second question?
Process, I can answer that.
How easy do we make it?
Oh, okay. At the beginning of the season, Al McGregor, our athletic director, always has a director of student services, always has a parent meeting, and it's always offered that, and I believe the forms are passed out for parents. They're not passed out anymore, they used to be. So it's offered anyway, and they just have to ask Al for the form, and it's filled out. It comes to me, and generally sign it and pass it on to the Maine Education Maranacook Education Foundation. Recently, they have given us some money to make, and we make the decision. I don't believe that we've ever not given a student the money, so.
Steve?
I think I have been around for most of the tenure of this. And, one thing we have to keep in the forefront is that there is no state funding for extracurricular activities. There hasn't been. And, so, it all comes from local funding, which has been a challenge, particularly when we've been challenged by our towns. We've struggled with the cost annually for years, and the fees were actually offered as an alternative to, cutting back on sports or moving to intramural sports, which I recall being a lively conversation, not just on the fiscal idea, but frankly, one of the benefits of intramural was potentially more kids participating. But, each side has its strong advocates, and there are certainly, many folks in the community who think Maranacook varsity sports are near and dear to their hearts. I would point out that there's another tier still. We have sports that receive no school funding and have to raise everything. So when we had our parent sports night last Sunday night, 6 o'clock, big crowd, most folks were told that it was going to be $75 per season. Lacrosse team was told it's $150, plus we need to raise several $1,000s more. And so we're going to, if you want to get rid of the, one level of activity fee, what do you do about some of the others? Where in the case of the girls lacrosse team, they're looking at raising $4,000, and that excludes any kind of bus trips, which are $300 per away game. The parents are providing the transportation. It has grown. It started off, I think it was around 50, and I think initially it was 50 per year. And now it's 75 per sport or per season. Same thing. And I can tell you as an attorney who does family law, that all these extra costs, which are not considered part of basic child support, and not something that a court can actually grapple with, become fairly contentious between a number of parents who aren't willing to, share the cost, and it becomes, the kids do suffer because of it. And if you have several kids, it certainly adds up, and then we can start the discussion of equipment, but none of us really want to go there. I think a lot of the folks who've said 75 isn't all that bad, recognize they're also spending $300 a season for equipment or whatever. It's not as brutal as it might seem in practice, because frankly I'm not aware of any kid that's ever been turned away for not being able to come up with the fee. It's generally handled very confidentially. In most cases, the coach says, listen, I got to collect the fees. If you think that you're going to have a problem, just let me know privately on one side, and it's handled. No one knows, certainly among the teams, who's contributed, who hasn't. What we don't know is the number of kids that have chosen not to go out for a sport because they didn't want it to become an issue for their parents, or, they just assumed that, no, I'm having a hard time with shoes, I'm poor, therefore I can't participate. It does become one of the socially distinguishing things at Maranacook, because if there's a divide among the students, in many cases it's between those who participate in extracurricular activities and those who don't, which is quite visible to many kids. I'm not sure, in terms of impact, however, in many cases, when we eliminated the late bus, that had as big an impact on participation as the participation fee. because there are many kids that when we no longer transported kids at 5 o'clock at night, couldn't stay after school because they wouldn't have a way home otherwise. So I mean, if you're looking for barriers to participation, there are a number of them. I would certainly welcome looking at it. I'm not sure that this is a particularly great year to add another $45,000 to the local share. You know, we can look at things. We ought to be able to find ways that we can boost participation, or make it clearer that more kids can and should participate. But it may be a bigger than $45,000 number if in fact transportation home after school is just as big a barrier as the $75.
Let's do both then. We'll add the late bus too.
I'm sorry, Trish, what did you say?
Let's add the late bus too then.
That was another 15 or 20,000 if I remember. But can I just say one more thing, Terry?
Yeah.
Just as some history for you, Trish, too. Back when we started talking about the activity fees and the fact that we were going to need to either cut middle school sports or cut some sports, the board voted at the time, I think this was probably 7 or 8 years ago at the time, to do away, I'm just giving you an example of what happened. We decided we were going to do away with freshman boys basketball. The community was up in arms at the time, very upset, but very respectful. They approached us as a board and said, we want to continue to have the freshman basketball team. We will be self-sustaining and raise all of the money. Can we continue? So that's happened, as Steve said, with a number of sports. Lacrosse we didn't have lacrosse at the time, but since then it's been added to the school roster. But these teams, football is also self-sustaining. So those kids are raising even more money than the activity fee because they don't actually pay an activity fee. They have to raise their own funds and their own equipment. So I didn't want you to think that some of those ideas hadn't been thought of too. I think, I don't remember, Steve, but I want to say that we did a Survey Monkey at that time that polled parents about this very issue. I could be wrong though. But if we didn't, it might be a good thing to do.
Yeah, the difficulty with the Survey Monkey is that in many cases, the people who would have a regular email and be able to participate to Survey Monkey are probably the folks that don't have a problem paying $75 in the first instance. That you're not really getting to the economically disadvantaged people who, don't come out in the first instance because they know in advance that it's unaffordable. I'm not, 100% sure how to get around that. I mean, frankly, if we're going to study and deal with any issue first, it's, how do we get these kids to come forward and apply? Because like I said, if someone wants to play, I'm not aware of any instance in which participation has been refused because they couldn't afford it.
Has anyone here received a complaint from a student or a parent about the fee?
Never, and I will say that to answer your question, Jim, about how the forms are, in addition to the sports meeting, either in the spring or in the fall, where you're told that night about financial aid, but also each team is assigned a parent. So that parent representative is the communicator for the coach and the team. At least that's my experience in all of the teams that my kids have been on. So that representative is constantly talking to the people that are either going to try out or wanting to try out. And those forms are offered to people more than just one time. So like Steve said, people could approach a coach confidentially and let them know. And I will tell you that all the coaches that I've dealt with in this district, they'd probably take the money out of their own pocket if they had to pay for a kid. That's how dedicated they are to their kids. But I think the form is offered quite a few times throughout the year, and it's never been, it's talked about a lot.
Yeah, one last thought. What the money goes to, most of the time is paying for the coach. That's the biggest, the coach's stipend is actually the biggest part of the budget. For example, the girls lacrosse, which doesn't have, you know, any transportation issues, which are $300 for a bus for an away game, it's $2,500 of the approximately $4,000 budget. The rest of it being all the other things that, you know, we have to pay. The school isn't asking for any recovery of overhead or anything that isn't a direct, I mean, the other pieces are we have to pay for referees and officials, which is the, you know, the other big piece of that. So we're not, it's not coming back into the general budget and supporting the athletic department. It's pretty much aimed directly at that. Last thing is that the teams and parents really do a lot of money raising on their own, particularly through the Awesome Bear.
Yes.
Before I went to the parent meeting Sunday night, I spent the afternoon selling, you know, mac and cheese, chop suey, and donated cookies for the basketball tournament that was going on, because there are some folks who run these little basketball tournaments, and we're given the opportunity to, you know, charge for admission. Everybody charges for admission, and to, you know, sell them, you know, Gatorades, waters, you know, cookies, 3 crock pot dishes, and, you know, I know for girls lacrosse, I think last Sunday we raised about $1,100. That will help with some of our budget, and, you know, the school doesn't charge for the use of the gymnasium, but as a consequence of that, my understanding is that we've, you know, it has brought in like $85,000 over the last few years, you know, that goes to sports through the Awesome Bear Society.
It goes to sports, and it also goes to the various graduating classes, depending on, you know, whatever class is having a fundraiser. I think the class of 2017, last year, we had a basketball tournament and raised, I can't remember the exact figure, but it was a lot of money. Additionally, I just wanted to point out that Awesome Bears allocate a certain amount to each sports team each year. And it's my understanding, and anybody here, correct me if I'm wrong, that the coach has the authority to allocate those funds how they see fit. So for instance, and I think I mentioned this to you in another board meeting that we had, there have been instances where our activity fees have been waived because they didn't need new uniforms, they didn't need new equipment. So that money was put towards the kids' activity fees. Does that happen all the time? No. But I will tell you that, you know, the group of parents that I'm involved with, I'll give you an example for baseball. We're raising money right now to give back to the coach. Will he use that to waive the activity fee? That would be awesome, but it's up to him. You know, and if anybody wants to buy a sweatshirt, t-shirt, or a long sleeve shirt, come and see me. So just I don't want you to think that there aren't other things going on consecutively during all this.
Betty?
I have two questions of clarification. Have we ever waived the fee for free and reduced lunch students, number one? And how much would it cost to waive the fee for free and reduced lunch students?
You can't tell because you don't know who's free and reduced, and you don't know who's participating and who's not. And like I said, as far as I know, no one's ever had to pay the activity fee if they truly thought they couldn't afford it and asked for assistance, because it's always been provided.
And I guess I just object
Wait a
to
second.
having them even have to think about it, I guess, is just the idea.
Wait a second, Donna?
At the very beginning of this whole activity fee discussion, it was, I don't remember what year it was, but there was a free and reduced consideration. It didn't last very long, and I don't know the history behind that. I don't know if you remember that, or, but it didn't last very long, and the activity fee was put in place for everybody, so.
The free and reduced was waived way back when this first started as all students paying a activity fee for the year. At that point, free and reduced were waived. And then that went away because of the annual meeting vote. When the participation fee came back a few years later, it was decided not to waive free and reduced because they were letting the coaches have the option to do fundraising to pay the participation fee rather than each student paying their own participation fee. So at that point, they didn't put a free and reduced factor into it because the team could fundraise to pay the whole team's activity fee rather than individuals paying the activity fee.
And what was the amount?
Well, what we figured is because I don't know exactly, I don't know the students that are free and reduced, and I don't know if those students who are free and reduced actually go out for anything. But our free and reduced count district-wide is about 35%. So if you look at about 35% of the 45,000 or so that we anticipate taking in, that would be what the cost would be. I think we figured maybe like 12% or something, 12,000.
I had another question, but it's gone.
Gary, did you just raise your hand?
Finally. I've been quiet. So now's my time, Sharon. I had two people talk to me about this. One thought the fees were fantastic because it made the children realize that everything is not free in this world and that they work very easy on it. And the other one used the Awesome Bear, and they said, we're happy. And both of them said, that even though they used the Awesome Bear, they also went out and participated in trying to raise fees, the funds for the Awesome Bear. So I think the learning skill, but what really would worry me is that when we get involved with everything being free, then let's say, well, we need to have more trips to Spain, we need to have more trips to all these different countries, and that's expensive. And I could tell you only from what I see what's going on with this Kent's Hill going to South Africa, that is not cheap. I mean, the cost for a child to go to South Africa for education.
Yeah, well, I very much regret that we can't offer all kinds of extracurricular activities to every student's interest without participation fees. I mean, that would be great. But I think we do a service to the community that we offer these programs at all in a way that's more economical than any of these things would be otherwise. But that's all I'll say about this for now, anyway.
Sean wants to speak.
Guy in the corner.
Sean.
I guess, what I'm thinking, my takeaway is that we have the fees. I kind of see it as it provides more opportunities for kids because it sounds like to me, hearing some of the history or a lot of the history, that it was at the point where we were going to eliminate things if we didn't have fees. So that makes the opportunity for children to participate, and it seems, there's fundraising opportunities. It seems to be a lot of, I don't know how many times I've given bottles to the football team or bought cookies or had the car wash multiple times in the same day or because the kids want to go back. But, I don't necessarily see the fee as a bad, I wish everything could be free, but that's not how the world works. And I guess if I was open to anything, and this year's not the time, I would probably be open to a late bus. I've heard I have heard from a few parents that, they can definitely afford for their kids to play. That wasn't the issue, it's the transportation of the child or trying to find a ride. So I understand this year's not the year, and I don't want to say no to it, but I guess in a future year, I would be open to looking at a late bus.
I guess I would just, for me, close with saying, everybody at Marina Cook has a friend, right? I mean, I have friends that I could talk to. You probably have somebody that your kids went to school that you could talk with. And for anybody that's out there watching our budget meetings, I would hope that one of these parents who are struggling financially would call one of us privately or confidentially and say, look, I'm really struggling, but my kid really wants to play basketball. How can I make that happen? Any one of us on this board would certainly sit with anybody, talk to a friend that you have, and they can point you in the right direction. I guess for me, some of the communications that we've received keep saying that a child would be too embarrassed to approach somebody, but it would be my hope that the parent is the one who approaches somebody on their behalf. So, as somebody that talks to my kids about my own finances, I think, I'm hoping that any parents out there that have that issue would feel free to talk with any one of us, because everybody here has a friend here or, in our community. I really believe that. This is a great community, and we don't want to leave anybody out, certainly.
Are there any of the other items on our budget that anyone would like to discuss? Oh, updates. Yes. Huh?
Health insurance update, maybe?
Yes, I have some updates. We have no information on health insurance at this point. But Gary did ask about the cost of lunch for FY17, and I spoke to Jeff Bridges, and the plan is to raise the cost 10 cents for all schools for lunches. That would be $3 for high school and $2.75 for the rest of the schools. That would bring us up to the price equity price, meaning it's the same price that we're reimbursed by the government for free or reduced lunch. Jeff does recommend keeping breakfast at the same price. There's no regulation for breakfast price, so.
Do we need to vote on that increase?
Not at this point, no. We have the list of students and staff who participated in the School Spirit Challenge. Trish emailed me about lead, the levels of lead in our schools, so I thought I would report out on that. There was an article that came out on the news about lead in our schools. We are required to test every 5 years the schools that have well water, so we do that. We have someone who is they have to have a special license to test the water. Some schools were tested in 2013 and some were tested in 2015, depending on our rotation schedule. A reading of 15 or greater is considered unsatisfactory, and 5 out of the 6 of our schools have well water, and the tests are all under the 15. And it's UGs per liter. And we found out what that is, like it's a teeny bit. Pardon me?
How do we do for arsenic, greater local?
We have been tested for arsenic, and actually, Bob Marvin is here, and he's the arsenic expert. And we did have to do is it called an abatement of one of our schools, and we have taken care of that. But I don't have the numbers on that. I can get them. I can bring them in for you.
Typically, lead is a problem associated with public water supplies that supply through lead pipes.
Okay, so one of our schools, Manchester, does have public water. The public water is tested. I talked to Paul today and asked him if we had actually done a test of the Manchester school, and he said we have not, but we will do that. That's on the list to do, so.
Yeah, they have found of late, though, because of the corrosive water in Flint, a lot of people have been testing their wells, and sometimes if their well water becomes corrosive, then it can bleach the lead from their pipes. So it can still happen even in well water. Unfortunately, it's a big thing in the St. Lawrence River, which is where I moved here from, and that just recently, a lot of the salt barns have been turning the water corrosive in the wells and making people have lead in their water in their homes. So it's a problem, too.
Okay, UG is micrograms per liter, so everything is measured in UGs for the lead, so micrograms per liter. We still haven't heard about our health insurance, and so we still have the 6%. They told us that we would hear by April 1st, so we're...
They told us by the first day of spring.
I know. I know. So those are the updates that I have. Nothing
Thank
else
you.
has changed.
Gary?
So the closure of the lawsuit, is that part of this budget?
The lawsuit,
Yeah, that we have pending,
the main care?
main care, whatever?
No, we still don't have definites on that, so.
So that's,
We still don't have the
so
paperwork, I
that's
should
not part
say.
of, that's not figured into this. So how's that gonna be handled when it does come down?
It's something I'm working with the auditors on. It's
It ain't over till it's over.
So, I mean, what do we have to have, a special town meeting on that?
No.
We have no money set aside in this budget.
Go ahead.
We're hopeful that this will be taken care of before the end of this fiscal year, and we'll take care of it in this fiscal year.
Okay,
It's our hope.
and we have,
It may impact the carry forward.
Yes.
and how about the deliberations for the teachers? Is we have any money set aside for that?
But that definitely won't be done this fiscal year.
We're starting negotiations on Monday, so.
Okay. Good news forward.
Are there any members of the public that had wanted to speak before us on a budget issue?
We have to just talk about if we want to meet on the next meeting.
Yeah, we're scheduled to have a meeting on March 30th if necessary. And then, are there any other meetings before annual meeting, like
Yes. The
one
first-
or two?
We got
there's-
one on March
no,
6th?
There's one on the first week
April
in
6th.
April.
And then we are to vote on the 13th. The
So we have
budget-
two more.
The board needs to vote on the budget on March 13th, so.
So if we don't have the meeting next week,
Then we'll pick up anything we need to do on April 6th.
on April 6th,
I agree.
and it was posted as if necessary,
Yes.
so people weren't like saving up their comments till that meeting particularly.
I would move that we consider the 30th not necessary.
March 30th.
March 30th.
Maybe 30th too. March 30th.
Is that a motion, Steve?
A second.
Okay, we probably don't need any discussion on this one. All in favor? Okay, so our next meeting will be April 6th.
6th.
By which time they'll tell us that it will be another 2 weeks and we'll hear about insurance.
And hopefully
Don't
we'll
even
know
say
about
that.
the insurance then and know where we are. Are there any other questions?
Move to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Well, we've got one motion, a second, another motion. Any discussion? All in favor? Let's go home.